Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Today we're talking about Warner Brothers Discovery taking out the garbage. And look, we're not saying that people are garbage or anything like that. That wouldn't be very nice. But they're taking out the parts of Warner Brothers Discovery that don't work. Of course, most of them are at WarnerMedia because WarnerMedia was merged with Discovery under the control of David Zaslav and his killer management team, and they've been looking at WarnerMedia now that they're in control of it, and they've been cutting projects, people, entire departments, development budgets, and wiping out anything that doesn't fit with their strategy. So as a result, a lot of people are upset about this, people that use to control it, but it's not going to be the same as it was. It's not going to be an opportunity for people to come in and push their ideology, or for people to come in and not be hired based on merit at all. This is cutting things back to a black and white, straightforward operation where people are judged not on their skin color or their ideology, but on what they're able to do for the business. And even capable people, if they're not the best, they may not last. And even if they're better than capable and they are the best, if they do something the company doesn't need anymore, if they can't find another place for them, they're out the door. They're not playing games over at Warner Brothers Discovery, and a big part of that is the debt that they have, the $50 billion in debt. We talk about that a lot. But also there's the overall pressure under a Zaslav type of operation. Zaslav comes from the cable industry. He's done a lot in cable industry. He was one of the founders of CNBC. His producers and his people work very hard. It's a lot of no-nonsense work that they do. I heard him in an interview explaining at CNBC that years ago when they had CNBC, they used to have producers that worked so hard and so many hours that NBC used to go over there and say, like, hey, we need some of these producers over here because, what one producer could do at a cable division, a TV producer couldn't accomplish. You need like 5 producers to do what one cable guy could do. So he's been all about efficiency and effectiveness, for all of his management career. There's not going to be a lot of foolishness gumming up the works and throwing sand in the gears at WarnerMedia that's going to stay. Okay, I came across this article today in seekingalpha.com. I like it a lot. So we're going to get into this article first. Before we do, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and give me a thumbs up when you like it. It's a huge help when you guys subscribe. So, and when you like the video, share it on your social media is another huge help. Even if you have 10 followers, it's 10 more people that get a chance to see the video, and it really helps me build the channel. So thanks for that so much. And that's when I can start publishing my own non-woke comics again. You're going to like them. All right, so from seekingalpha.com, Warner Brothers Discovery taking out the garbage. I didn't come up with that. I didn't come up with taking out the garbage. These guys did, but I really, really like it because it's a great way to describe what they've been doing. Okay, so their cash flow report indicated a need for a rapid course adjustment. Nothing that's happened so far indicated a permanent profit change. And this is a reference to the quarter where they had to announce a significant loss when they're merging the operations. Instead, management is getting rid of subpar assets to focus on the balance sheet and the profitable assets. And this is another issue that people don't get. Focus. You could do a million different things. And if a couple of them make money and one of them does really well, a few of them lose money, the issue is there's no time for that. You have to pick your hits and you have to focus on those hits as much as possible. And that's what they're doing. They're not going to be putting out, people have complained like, well, they canceled Batgirl. They probably could have at least made their money back. It's like, no. You can't have the whole management team and everybody in branding and everybody, they're allocating money to do future projects and planning and attracting talent to appear in these films and TV shows and producers and director relationships. And people have to understand what you're about and what you're trying to do. And this is why, they're not going to put out projects that either damage the brand or don't enhance their brands. They've got to take them to another level. That's what their focus is. The current market price reflects the worries of merger failure because the bad news comes first. So the market price for stocks, and was just commenting on a previous video we just did, oh, the stock's doing terrible, Zaslav's killing it. It's like, all right, I know where you're coming from. But no, it's as this author explains, the worries of the merger is hurting the stock, but it's because bad news comes first. We have to cut this. We're taking a loss on this. We had to lay these people off. This doesn't fit with what we just spent billions of dollars acquiring. Yeah, it sounds like bad news. The good news comes later. These worries create an investment opportunity for investors who realize the original reasons for the merger remain intact. So the whole viability, when you start to understand how much success Zaslav and his team have had on just operating their businesses, developing brands, taking the Learning channel, which was doing documentaries on cats and butterflies, and turning it into a mainstream consumer reality channel with things like Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. Like, that's his team and his people. They're the ones that create that value. And you realize they're getting a chance to take over WarnerMedia, which has not been doing well, especially in the last couple of years under the ownership of AT&T. And now they have a chance to clean it up and clean it out. This is perfect for these guys. Warner Brothers Discovery is now in the renovations phase. There are all kinds of things, projects, proposals, even budgets that do not meet the requirements of new management, and they have to go. Many times the market loses sight of the end goal that was so in evidence during the acquisition process. Instead, the market focuses on the equivalent of a house that gets gutted on the way to a total remodel job, because that same market worries someone will wreck the joists and collapse the house. That is shown in the recent price action of Warner Brothers Discovery, because the stock is off. It's off like 45% so far this year. And what were the things that they were throwing out? Well, this was a recent video we did. They wiped out the diversity office, the diversity, equity, inclusion office. They restructured it, but they restructured, you have to listen to the video. They restructured it in such a way that, and this is just a couple days ago, in such a way as to take all the power away from trying to lord over and influence and threaten employees or any of the productions with, oh, you've got to have diversity, equity, inclusion. It has to be more important than whatever you're working on. No, not permitted. So that's one thing they did. Another thing they did was canceling Batgirl. Everybody knows about that by now. Another thing they did was Gunnar Weidenfeld, the CFO, who's Zaslav's key guy, was at a business conference basically saying, look, cash never lies. That's his expression he uses. He's just saying, like, listen, there's no way we are doing things that do not make money. And he was also stating that it was way overblown, Batgirl getting canceled, like what the effect of that was on the business. This was a good one. Warner Brothers is on fire, and that's on purpose. This was coming from The Verge, and The Verge is a leftist type of website, but it's interesting to see what they say, because you can see they're in panic mode. They know they don't have control over the culture anymore. They're not going to be able to dictate, you need to do this diversity project or that diversity project. Here's another one from Daily Beast. Laid off HBO Max execs revealed Warner Brothers Discovery is killing off diversity and courting middle America. Meaning just mainstream content that people like. That's what middle America is. It's produced because people like it. It honors the brands. It's what people expect when they spend money on the content. It's that simple. It's really pretty simple, but it takes a hell of a lot of guts to do, because you've got Hollywood Reporter against you. You've got, all these media sites against you. You've got industry people against you. You've got former employees talking smack about you against you. This was a video where they burned $1 billion in woke TV shows and movies that were in development. Wasn't even part of Batgirl. They will cancel anything that doesn't make sense for them. A couple days ago, I did this massive changes coming video, and that was a day or two before the announcement about Constantine, the TV series, being canceled. It was supposed to be a woke TV series with a BIPOC lead character that WarnerMedia was expected to fund by J.J. Abrams, and they're like, no, we're going to cancel that, and the same day we're going to bring back the director from the original Constantine movie, and Keanu Reeves to star in the Constantine 2 sequel. I mean, I'm absolutely predicting that all of the woke film, TV, comics projects at WarnerMedia, at the very least, at Warner Bros. Discovery's WarnerMedia, are going to be canceled. They're not going to be producing anything like that. They may have something. Discovery has some odd reality shows. Okay, I'm aware of them. Whatever. It's not into. The whole thing of this is, if you want to create a new franchise, you want to do a woke superhero or something like that. I mean, they're going to seem ridiculous mixed in with regular superheroes, only because they're not focused on their characters. Don't have proper arcs. They don't make sense. But in any event, little separate projects here and there, it's fine. Just leave the mainstream projects alone, and that's what they're doing. We also did a video showing the entire killed list of projects. I mean, it went on and on and on and on and on forever, and I don't think that even really included everything, but it covered a hell of a lot. So, definitely check out the playlist. I'll put the contents, the link to the playlist in the description below. So as shown above, there was clearly some excitement, meaning the stock value, excitement about the merger prospects before the merger happened. But bad news has a habit of coming out first because management often, quote, takes out the garbage to get rid of things that frankly are not worth anything. Sorry, Batgirl. For a merger of this size, a few billions in charges do not change the fundamental story one bit. And when they're saying a few billion in charges, that's absolutely correct. Because you're not expecting, when you combine two businesses, that you're going to maintain everything as it was. You're going to cut back on things you no longer need, whether it's because of efficiency, strategy. For example, they're expected to lay off as many as 30% of their sales reps. They have 3,000 sales reps. So many sales reps. 3,000 sales reps for advertising at the combined Warner Bros. Discovery. They're expecting 30% of them to be gone. They've already laid off 100, so there's another 900 to go. Why would they lay off so many people? Well, for one thing, they have a different strategic direction they're going in. They're going to have, and tell me if you think this makes sense in the comments below, they're going to have sales reps not just selling, let's say, CNN and Turner and different Discovery channels. They're going to have their best sales reps selling multiple cable channels simultaneously. Well, why would you not do that? Why would you not do that? Right. So that's not a question of woke even. That's a question of just strategic. Your strategic organization, if you have a really strong sales rep who happens to sell a lot of advertising, why would you not have that person have more product line that they can sell? It's your product line. Because you have that great rep, and these reps all have relationships. So you're taking advantage of relationships. So of course there are going to be cost cuts, and of course there's going to be billions that they're going to cut back on. I mean, who knows how many billions it's going to be. They do say they want to save 3 to 5 billion in synergies, meaning when you combine the companies. And that includes things like layoffs and selling real estate. And closing offices. But that doesn't include canceling projects like Batgirl and other animation shows, and removing Sesame Street episodes. And they're not talking about we're going to cancel projects and that's going to save us $3 billion. They're talking about overhead expense, the costs that it takes to operate the business, not direct investments in productions and content. Instead, what's happening is the balance sheet is becoming focused on the assets that are expected to realize the original projection of profitability and benefits that had the market excited in the first place. The immediate problem is the market gets worried that the story has changed, or that management will make a mistake that is fatal to the success of the acquisition. So what would be a mistake that would be fatal to the success of the acquisition? Well, for example, if you cancel Batgirl, like they did, and as a result, nobody wants to go see your next big film like Black Adam. Well, that's not likely to happen, is it? Well, what if people just decide, well, we don't like them because they're not woke, so we won't go work for that company? Like, oh, that could happen. Not likely. So there's really not a lot of risk in them screwing up the company, let's say, because the whole value of the company is two things. It's the brands, it's their intellectual property, and it's their ability to produce content that serves the brands well so that consumers will like what they see, and the brands and the products together will generate a lot of money. That's the whole purpose of this. So they're well aware of that. They're completely focused on only that. So anytime you see things getting cut, it's like, well, this is silly. Why should we keep this? And the answer is like, no, it doesn't pay to spend, was it going to be $200 million or something on the Constantine TV series? Like, what are you doing? Like that? No, we don't need that. There's no way we're going to get the money back after we've done it. So they're sharp. They know not to do that. So nonetheless, so they said Mr. Market. So Mr. Market is just a phrase talking about the stock market. So the stock market worries about how much more bad news is to come when the bad news is the main topic at quarter end. It would not be unusual for management to adjust the original strategy as economic conditions change or as industry conditions change. But changes due to the moving business cycle are often different from permanent profit impairments or benefits. Yet, the market also often confuses transitory with permanent. This confusion can cause individual investors to head for the exits before the benefits, and the higher stock price become apparent. Further confusion exists because a lot of very good investors will state that only maybe a third of their ideas work out as planned. Therefore, there's a need for the rest of the time to cut losses and move on. But that accuracy depends on the work done before the investment's made. Part of that work is exactly what accurate news will make or determine a change in the original story, so that there's time to invest elsewhere. Generally, stock price movements are not a good indicator because stock prices often imagine 3 or 4 times as many crises that actually exist. That is why due diligence and your faith is so important. When you're an investor, you will not be part of the panic crowd. The management has been fairly detailed about what garbage needs to be taken out. The minute investors saw the earnings release, they should have realized that management would be taking out enough garbage to fill a whole garbage dump. And they have been cutting and cutting and cutting. But the merger was large enough that such an event would still not change the original scenario. Instead, it would remove a lot of useless assets and capitalized expenditures that were not going to generate future returns. What's a capitalized expenditure? This is like the money already spent on Batgirl. So $90 million is a capitalized expenditure, so that if they cancel it completely and write it off and say, okay, Batgirl's worthless, new strategic direction, we can't market this film, that capitalized expenditure could be written off as a total loss, which is what they did. They did that with $1 billion at least worth of content. There were likely personnel separation charges and hiring costs as well. So personnel separation charges, you lay somebody off and you give them a severance. Why not? Clearly the benefits would be coming from the remaining assets. The big problem is shown by the cash flow number. Once the combined company showed only nominal cash flow growth, even though there was some small period of time to be adjusted for, there needed to be a strong and immediate refocusing action taken. Clearly, the hurdle for projects undertaken by the previous owner was much too lenient. So what they're talking about with cash flow growth is that when you combine the two companies, it's not showing a lot more, essentially, income coming from the combined companies. So something ain't right. The first order of business should be to get adequate cash flow and free cash generated that is normally the case by assets in this business. That is exactly what management appears to be doing despite the current market fears. Even with the one-time acquisition and merger costs considered, the cash flow generation shown above should have probably at least tripled. Okay, so that's in this piece. I'll give you a link to this if you want to check it out for yourself in the description below. It makes little to no sense that Warner Bros. Discovery had an annualized free cash flow at the rate of about $3 billion. And again, free cash flow, just think of it in terms of income available to the company. Just simple enough for whatever use they want. And then merge with a larger entity and still had a free cash flow rate of around $3 billion annualized. I mean, Discovery was making money. WarnerMedia had free cash flow. So where is it? There's been some noted concern about the downward adjustment of EBITDA, earnings before interest and taxes and depreciation. Just basically, it's also cash flow before taking account for taxes and other investments that they have to make to continue to run the business for the fiscal year. That simply reflects on the cost of whipping the acquisition into shape. The adjustments for streaming industry dynamics are unlikely to be permanent headwinds, though they could be around for a year or two. Probably the material adjustment was the lower than expected EBITDA generation for the acquired assets. Even though management frequently gives information in a way that the market will focus on a number, management itself is aware of a range of possibilities before the acquisition was made. Because obviously, they're sharp, sophisticated people. They look at the numbers, they know, okay, there can be a range of results, so they have a couple different plans in place. Therefore, the lower than expected EBITDA reported was probably in the range of expectations, just as clearly management hoped to not be in that part of the range. Always hope for the best. However, noting in that slide changes the original story about the benefits and potential profits from the merger, there's always the possibility of unforeseen headwinds. Yeah, problems do happen. Probably the classic example there is an acquisition of Anadarko Petroleum. Okay, so same result, different company. The current situation with Warner Brothers Discovery is nothing close to that extreme, but clearly the garbage needs to go. They're getting rid of the garbage, focusing on the remaining assets to bring about the original projection of lost profits. The emphasis on cash flow is justified because the company does need access to debt markets to do business. I talk about this kind of often. They have to have cash coming in. If they don't have cash coming in, they're going to have a problem with financing and refinancing the debt that they need to stay operating. So that's a significant number, 50 billion plus. So the cash flow needs to support the business adequately. Despite market worries, there's zero indication of any kind of permanent profit impairment or any basically permanent damage to the business resulting from the current news or activities. If anything, what's happening now should improve prospects even if further course corrections are indicated along the way. The pathway is unlikely to be straight up, but that's how these things are. The market never remembers that management does due diligence before the acquisition. Then actual possession of the assets always turns up still more information that adjusts the strategy to get to the final goal. The idea that anything's more than normal house cleaning for what is in this case a big and real house just has no traction at this point. So there's no reason to think that there's anything bad permanently going on as they literally get rid of the garbage. There aren't a lot of people out there saying, oh, we love this company. They're treating us so nicely. They're letting us do whatever we want. Well, that's a good thing. More importantly, management knows this business. This may be the first management in several that knows what to do with these assets. The other managements before this one clearly had no idea. It's unfortunate. Jason Kilar was just trying to remake Hulu. He was a founder of Hulu, and Hulu is amazing. It was a groundbreaking company, but things changed. There isn't room for necessarily another Hulu the way Hulu was launched. So at least in theory, there should be less to worry about here. But the market does know that there have been a few failures in the past involving Time Warner assets. Several. So being the confirmed worrier that the market is, it's allowed the stock to get to a better bargain level. Maybe in the future there will be a permanent change in the original acquisition story. If this management is as conservative as its reputation, that's very likely to be the case. But such a revision is likely to be for the better, not the worse, than the market imagines. So that's a big endorsement of the company and explanation of their strategy of taking out the garbage. It's not like when they got into WarnerMedia, they knew they were going to find some kind of a disciplined, perfect operation. Certainly not perfect for the way they want to run it. And you've seen, I've done videos on pretty much every situation, whether it's from the diversity inclusion office to movies like Batman that needed to be canceled, other film and TV, layoffs in the sales departments, Layoffs everywhere, layoffs in their reality TV programming at HBO Max. They've had massive changes at the company. They're only going to have more changes, but they have a strategy. They know what they're doing. They're not just firing everybody. They're firing people that don't contribute to producing great content and just plain old aren't needed, especially if their agenda, that whole concept of having a woke agenda and trying to inject that woke agenda into this company, this is not the right company for it. They're going to have to go to Disney for that. And hopefully Disney will wake up and change one of these days. This is another just quick article, Warner Brothers Discovery, possibly the buy of a decade. The author goes on and talks about his experience just personally being a Harry Potter fan and going to the Warner Brothers studio tour and spending like a fortune on crazy magic wands and things like that. Apparently, this studio tour alone brought in $160 million in revenues. Now, they don't have a theme park, but they have a studio tour, and they're expanding. You know, they know what they're doing. They know what works. They're focused on what's making money. I would not, again, I'm not giving investment advice, but I would not bet against David Zaslav and his team in the long term. If you're short term, if you're like, oh, I want to make this happen tomorrow, like that's not how they operate. That's not how you build a solid business, and that's not what they're looking to do. All right, thanks again for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.